Thank you for joining us for the first day of NJLAP Wellbeing in the Law Week Talks. My name is Daphne Ekin. I'm a psychologist, and I've been the team clinician for NJLAP for a little over 2 years. We always kick off the Wellbeing Week in the Law with a discussion of physical well-being related topics. This year, I'm excited about our talk, Connecting Physical Well-being to an Often Overlooked Resource, Nature. So if you joined us in the beginning, I had a photo up that I took just this morning before this presentation as I pulled into the parking lot of the Law Center. And as I got out of my car, like I do most mornings, I took a minute to take in the beauty of this little patch of forest we have behind the Law Center. Very lucky to have exposure to more nature around us here in New Brunswick. But I wanted to have that to be something I start with because I thought that was such a good example of how you don't really need to look around as much to find nature. So once again, I'm going to put that up as I say a few things about why I'm so excited about this topic. Legal professionals operate in a demanding, high-stress environment filled with long hours, sedentary work, and constant pressure. That's unfortunately known by all involved. We also know the toll it takes on the well-being of lawyers across different dimensions, physical, psychological, intellectual, occupational, social, spiritual, all around. In our modern, fast-paced, and tech-driven world, we often overlook a critical factor in our health, spending time in natural environments. And scientific research supports what many of us instinctively feel, that there's something about nature that improves our health. So today we'll explore how even the smallest doses of nature can make a difference, like the snapshot here, and how legal professionals can integrate nature into their busy lives. I'm delighted to have a wonderful speaker who's joining me here today to share her insights on this topic. Here with us is Josie Koyak, and thank you so much, Josie, for being here. I can't think of a better person to have a conversation about this topic than you. Could you please introduce yourself to our listeners?
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Daphne. I'm very excited to be here. And yes, being physically active is super important to me. I was a professional dancer for 20 years, and in that time, I traveled a lot around the world and often needed to take care of myself. So I started to study more holistic health medicine to take care of myself. And definitely, I've noticed being in nature renews my spirit. Being in sunshine renews my spirit. And I am hoping that everyone actually gets at least 5 minutes a day to just sit calmly, breathe in a little bit of fresh air wherever you are. And I hope we get to watch a little bit of that video at the end. I hope we get to share that
Absolutely.
too.
Absolutely. And we're so grateful at NJLAB for the collaboration that we've had over the last year. For those of you who haven't had a chance to meet Josie at one of our events, Josie has been supporting NJLAB, combining her expertise in movement with her passion for holistic well-being. And she's been helping us develop diverse well-being programs for lawyers. We've definitely done things focusing on stretching, breathing exercises, and mindfulness. And I appreciate the creativity and dynamism you bring to different programming. And you and I have been talking a lot about actually making use of some of this beautiful outdoor space we have around us at the Law Center. And this is a talk that actually came out of that. So I'm really glad that we can share some of our thoughts on this. So let's jump into our discussion. I want to start with like a brief overview from a scientific standpoint in terms of like, so what's behind the sense of calm that comes from a walk in the park or the energy boost that you get from fresh air, or just a simple stress relief from looking at trees outside our window. I wanted to start by sharing some of the key physical health benefits of time spent in nature, since today's focus is mostly about physical health. um, Nature is beneficial for all aspects of our well-being, but today Josie and I will mostly be focusing on physical health. One research shows that natural environments and spending time in them lowers blood pressure, heart rate, and reduces the stress hormone cortisol. Can't get better than that, right? It boosts the immune system, reduces inflammation, and even decreases the risk of chronic diseases. So, for example, a large-scale study published in Nature Scientific Reports found that people who spent at least 120 minutes per week in nature reported slightly better physical and mental health compared to those who spent less or no time in nature. This research was based on nearly 20,000 participants, and the most important part of the research findings was that there was an important threshold of exposure, right? People who spent under 120 minutes didn't experience the same benefits. That's not to say that they didn't experience any benefits at all. But what's really helpful to know is that you do not have to meet the 120-minute threshold large chunks at a time. The same benefits are available by breaking into smaller segments, such as 10 minutes in a park, 5 minutes in the garden, another five by the water. There you have it, right? So the idea is, uh, there are some like numbers that we try to hit, right? I don't exactly know where the research on like the 10,000 steps came from, who did the original research, but it's like, it's not like it's not good to walk less than 10,000. It's good to move as much as you can. But when people have this target of like, how many minutes have I spent exposed to any natural elements this week? And I want to set the bar at 120 minutes, right? I do think that that is a good place to start. One of the best supported ideas in environmental psychology is that being in nature helps our bodies recover from stress because natural environments trigger a calming parasympathetic nervous system response. This theory, called the stress reduction theory, explains how this mechanism works of natural environments creating a calming effect. The idea is when you look at trees, hear bird songs, see water moving, your body shifts gears from fight or flight to rest and digest. This means real, measurable physical effects. It means lower heart rate, reduced blood pressure, slower breathing, and even reduced muscle tension. So essentially, our bodies interpret natural settings as safe. So when we spend time in nature, even a walk in a city park, we're giving our cardiovascular system a break. It is essentially a free intervention that lowers our blood pressure without having us to do anything besides being present. Even better news here is that passive restoration offered by nature. You don't even have to be walking in nature, right? Because that obviously, has a double effect. You're exercising and in nature, but you don't even have to actively do anything. Something like looking at trees through your window or sitting on a bench outside is enough to start seeing the benefit. So if you're making a call, if you sit outside on a bench, get some sunlight in, and maybe breathe deep and hear bird song in the background, then you're actually contributing to your 120 minutes target, right? Now, there's of course the added benefits of doubling up exercise and nature, which I wanted to ask Josie. How does time in nature affect traditional exercise, Josie?
Yes. Outdoor activity like walking and hiking often provide greater mood boosting effects than indoor exercise. You're getting that sunlight, you're getting the fresh air, you're getting your eyes are actually getting more exercise actually when you're having to look at things further away than just having things right up in front of you. Um, Different sounds. You're just changing your
Right.
setting alone. Just switching that for a moment is wonderful. I actually often recommend that people, if they're able to, take calls or meetings and do a combination of walk around a lake while you're actually doing any kind of meetings that don't require you to be typing things up or pulling things up on a screen. But that combination is absolutely fantastic. And we know actually that the human body heals in the parasympathetic state. So you
Right.
really want to give yourself as much time in a rest, digest, absorb state in order to get as many benefits as possible from being outside, resting, hearing the birds. It's sort of so incredible to just give yourself those few moments to
Right.
recharge. 5 minutes.
Absolutely.
And like you're saying, a few minutes in the morning, a few minutes at the afternoon, a little bit at the end of the day, it adds up to 15 minutes. And then
Right.
you're getting that 120 without, I mean, hey, it would be wonderful to be able to go away for the weekend into some forest, but you don't need to. And
Yeah.
so, anyway, if you can, walk outside, take a meeting outside. It's a great start.
And it definitely I hear when you say that when you are actually exercising, say at a, like optimal heart rate, you're really physically exerting yourself. Why not do it in a setting where, treadmill versus the hiking, right? There are all these things that we can do outdoors that actually have greater mood boosting effects, you're saying.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
wonderful. So, well, yeah, like you said, it would be great if we could go the whole weekend and, have wonderful outdoor exposure. Because one, this is New Jersey and it rains most weekends, isn't it? Right? So, at least it sort of feels like that to me sometimes. But even, um, I guess I'm interested in sort of breaking this up type of
and
thing, right?
and
What
I
about
love the rain.
small nature interactions in urban settings, right? Do they still have an impact if you're in an urban setting? Are you like, I mean, I have this wonderful little foresty patch when I park my car, so I have access to that. But what if we're in urban settings? Small nature interactions in urban settings, are they even worth it? Do they have an impact?
Absolutely. Even short nature breaks, like sitting near trees, looking at green spaces, or listening to nature sounds, can reduce and improve focus. Even passive exposure to nature, such as sitting in a green space, can have benefits. You don't need a weekend in the wilderness to reap the benefits. In short, incorporating nature into daily life, whether through outdoor activities, gardening, simply appreciating natural surroundings, can serve as a valuable strategy for enhancing health and well-being and being. And luckily, more urban planning is really starting to focus on making sure that there are much more green spaces available to us.
That is true. That is true. And I think, for obviously it has multiple benefits, in terms of the environment and all that. But one of the things that I like doing is if I'm going to be talking about a topic, even when I have my presentation ready, I like sort of checking out what kind of podcasts are out there about this topic. And so this morning, as I was driving here, I came upon this podcast about, like, so if nature is this great and we all appreciate it, like, how do we lose our connection with nature so badly, right? And, when did this happen? And there was an interesting talk by someone who is, not a world I'm aware of too much, but someone who's a very well-known forager, right? So she was talking about how even something like looking for certain herbs in that kind of like, I don't even know what I'm looking at. They all look like, weeds to me, or, they all look like, some kind of thing that grew out of a crack. Even she was saying that knowing, certain plants, right? Saying like, oh, I spotted, I don't know, I'm just going
Dandelion,
a
dandelion,
dandelion. I was thinking of the
purslane,
same.
mint.
Uh, right. And then being able to sort of like appreciate, oh, here we are, like from the crack of this like wall, here's like this mint sprig coming out. And she was talking about how even noticing those things, that it still is all around us,
Right.
has a lot of well-being benefits. And actually, the bulk of the podcast was surrounded on this idea that, you may not be someone who has the physical ability to do a, really strenuous hike, but if you're taking like a leisurely foraging walk through the forest, you're going up and down, you're like managing your balance because the ground
Mhm.
isn't even, and there are all those health benefits to it as well, which I thought was really cool. So there are a lot of different ways in which we can approach like why nature is so helpful to us. And I know that you have a particular interest in the nature-based practice of forest bathing, Shirin-yoku, right?
Yes.
Japanese practice. Can you explain to us what it is and why it works?
So, Shinrin Yoku is in Japanese a practice where you mindfully immerse yourself in a forest environment, engaging all of your senses. It's not about exercise as much as about slowing down and absorbing nature. Studies show that forest bathing reduces cortisol, lowers blood pressure, increases heart rate variability, contributes to nervous system balance, and boosts immune system functions to help fight illnesses.
Wow.
So the nerdy fact: trees release phytoncide. It's a natural chemical that has been shown to increase the activity of natural killer cells, which helps to fight infections and cancer. It's
Wow.
absolutely beautiful. Some of my favorite trees are the pine trees. When you see that resin oozing down, I don't know if you've ever walked up and touched that. That's the tree defending itself, but it also releases such a beautiful smell. And that actually helps us. And So it's extraordinary. And luckily, I think what people really might want to try to do is all the time be looking for nature, so that anytime you need a moment to connect with nature, you've got those antenna out saying, oh, I remember right around the corner there's a spot. Oh, I remember they put a little plant up near the water cooler. Um, if you don't get to do the forest bathing all the time, but it
Those
is
facts are so
essential.
interesting. I mean, the fact that what I mean, I like obviously I think most of us do know the whole like photosynthesis, carbon dioxide, oxygen, and all that good stuff about, being in the forest and the air being like really
Much
oxygen rich.
cleaner.
But I've never heard of natural chemicals coming from the trees, released from the trees, increasing activity of our like most immune defending cells, right? The fact that just spending time in a forest can decrease inflammation,
Yeah.
infections, it's like, wow, like even sadder that we're not spending enough time. And as you were speaking, I thought of how every spring when trees bloom at different times, right? Of course, like it's almost like people who don't even notice nature ever. Like you can't help but notice the spring blooms. Like there's no way you're not gonna just like have a moment of like, wow, when did they even like come up, right? One of the things that I get surprised every year is, when everything is in green and you're surrounded by a lot of trees, it's easy to not recognize the variability of how many different tree types there, and what a variation of them exists. but because they bloom at different times during spring, one of the things that I really enjoy is sort of like noticing, like, oh, this one has blooms, but they're kind of like almost like green leaves coming out. A magnolia has like these, unbelievably stunning big blooms, and it's just one of those things where even paying attention to like that playful, like now this one bloomed, and in
Yeah,
one
they're
week,
saying hello to you.
right? And I was away at a conference in Seattle, and talk about forests, bathing. It was like one of those things where you're like, wow, yes, this is like definitely a place much easier to immerse yourself in the green. But like I was gone for 4 days, and when I came back, I was like, wait, all of New Jersey is now green. Like how quick was that? And even noticing the time passing from that standpoint and spending time in nature, just like having a leisurely walk. That's all adding up to your 120 minutes, I guess, right?
Right. Even the 5 minutes of intentional nature exposure, like stepping outside between readings, walking near trees, listening to nature sounds can be beneficial. I'm blown away by how noisy cities can be. So
Right.
giving your ear a little bit of a break will calm your nervous system, which will then boost your body's ability to
Right.
fight infections. And that's right, that carbon dioxide oxygen exchange that we get from the trees is essential for us. The trees clean the air. So naturally,
Right.
anytime you're near a green space, you're also breathing in cleaner air. And
That's
I,
that's
I yeah,
awesome.
I want people to look at those visits to nature as gifts to themselves.
That's such a good way of looking at it. But of course, knowing how intensely a lot of lawyers work, and being located in cities, or even if you yourself live somewhere a little bit more exposed to nature, like courthouses are located in cities and all that. um there's limited access to nature in cities, let's face it. What are some realistic ways to connect with nature in an urban environment? Any
Right.
suggestions?
So, urban parks, rooftop gardens, even indoor plants can make a difference. Research shows that having a view of greenery lowers stress levels and increases productivity. It's important not to underestimate the benefits of incorporating green breaks into a lawyer's day. This can be done by taking client calls while walking outside,
Hmm.
stepping out for some fresh air between hearings, or keeping a small desk plant for a nature break. Yeah, I mean, just having a plant in right next to you and actually sharing a little bit of tenderness, talking
Mm,
to the plants, playing a little bit of music, the plant will give that back to you. It's just wonderful. Name your plant, have a little tiny one. Just
right.
any little bit of connection to nature will be beneficial.
That's so true. And that actually made me think of how many people, a surprising number of people during COVID, became pet parents. Like there were a lot of people who had never even thought of like bringing a plant in their space, were really becoming attached to plants, and learning about different types to grow, and it became something that really grounded people at a time of great anxiety. I know that even something like gardening, community gardens, it makes a big difference.
Yes, and it's funny that you say that because luckily we do. There are a lot of community gardens in our cities, so it also offers, aside from offering your connection to nature, you're also once again connecting with other people for a moment. That's also
That's true.
that's
That's
also
true.
a lot of fun.
And actually, it relate on the sort of like interesting things nature brings into our lives. In preparing for this talk, I researched some lesser known tangible physical benefits of being exposed to nature. And I've found a few interesting ones, like the one that you mentioned with like the, um, the chemicals the trees release,
Yes.
increasing the activity of our natural killer cells. I found out that exposure to soil, plants, fresh air increases the human microbiome's
Yes.
diversity, which basically means that we have a better immune system and lower allergies. And I don't know about you, but I have a lot of people around me who are sort of scratching their heads, literally and figuratively, about like, why are there so many allergies out there? And turns out one of the reasons why a lot of people have environmental allergies, like especially around this time, is apparently the more we're exposed to soil, plants, fresh air, the more diverse our microbiome is, which then makes it easier for us to tolerate things that could potentially be irritating to our system. Yeah, which I
Yeah.
thought was like, wow, who knew?
Well, I mean, 100 years ago, most people were farmers, and so we've slowly gotten further away from that. And I
Right.
think those little micro doses of exposure to things actually also boost our immune system. So
Absolutely.
sort of we grew together, and I think once again, I think I don't know about you, but I remember as a little kid making mud pies. Like I don't know if you remember that, but
There
like
was some interesting appeal to that. I don't know why. I'm sure my parents weren't too thrilled, but it was great.
yeah, I to be honest, I don't remember my mom actually freaking out about it, like, oh my God, don't touch that dirt. But now it does seem like you see people like wiping their kids down with uh, like antibacterial stuff or like wipes for everything. But we used to really get our fingers in there and like
Yep.
squeeze it up and let that gooiness like get all over us. And then we just go home and get hosed down. So I think probably maybe we should get back to a little bit of that and have a little bit
Yeah.
of fun with the forest again.
Right.
Really,
And as you're saying that, I'm thinking when you're doing things outside, I mean even something like foraging, right? Bend down, like look at, what edible plants might be in a
yes,
pot.
yes.
It's
Fiddlehead.
so much more fun than like stretching exercises, but you are actually stretching, right? So there's
Yes.
a lot of the so being in nature and that making some physical activity a lot more possible than sitting in a chair, right?
Yes,
Uh,
we used to get a lot more exercise just stretching down, reaching up, reaching for an apple. I mean,
yeah,
now you go to the supermarket and reach for an apple. Uh,
that's true.
50
That
years
that is
ago, you reached for a lemon out of a tree. You
that
reached for bananas out of a tree or walnuts. Yeah, so we do have to get back to nature. I think it would be super beneficial for everyone. And actually, even choosing colors that are like nature
hmm,
also soothe us. So maybe you can't get near the water, maybe you can't get near the forest, but consider wearing more natural colors. Um, will also have soothing effects. Even the colors in your walls or on your screen, I think a lot of people are doing this now, having beautiful, your most beautiful, whether it's a beach, whether it's a forest, whether it's a picture of the ocean, having those images also are beneficial. But getting out into nature, getting those natural killer cells boosted through breathing in pine forest or other tree that release those into the air for their protection and ours is
yeah.
really, really wonderful.
That's
Um,
that's true. What I wanted to sort of transition into, at least definitely not to forget, was I wanted to talk about another powerful connection to nature through animals. I'd
yes.
like to share some thoughts and research about how interactions with animals benefit our physical health. Because that's again like part of nature uh, show that petting or interacting with animals lowers blood pressure, heart rate, and cortisol,
Mhm.
while increasing dopamine and oxytocin, both promote relaxation.
Yes.
And you and I, we sometimes run into therapy dogs when we go visit Rutgers Law School, right?
Yes.
Uh,
They are
you know, I,
such a big attraction. They are such a
they're
big attraction.
amazing.
The kids really do gravitate towards them. And I'm saying kids, the students, they're adults. But I kind of feel like so many people are kids to me now since I am a little bit more on the mature side. But yes, legal professionals are increasingly using therapy dogs in law firms, courtrooms, bar associations to help reduce stress. There are also other animal assisted wellness practices lawyers might consider: equine therapy, pet assisted mindfulness, and even volunteering at animal shelters can provide powerful stress relief.
Wow. I actually remember a very interesting thing. Again, coming back from um, a conference at the Minneapolis airport. There was this like the sweetest therapy dog. And I was like, why do they have a, and they had a program where there was a rotating, employees that were, dogs and their handlers because of the number of people who were afraid of flying, who were feeling really tense, making it from one gate to another. And it was just the sweetest moments.
Yes.
And again, in urban spaces, being able to have that kind of exposure like that, the static electricity that you release by just petting an animal. And there's a lot to be said about that. And of course, if you have dogs, you definitely, hopefully, are benefiting from nature, exercise, and animal exposure at the same time by walking them.
Right. You are at least twice a day. If you're lucky, 3 times a day. You are being exposed to cuddly beautifulness. They are just filled with love, and you're getting that exercise. And
Yeah,
generally, you have to be outside, rain or shine. You're going to
right.
get a little bit more exercise. You also get to say hello to your neighbors. And what that also does, obviously, is reduce blood pressure and heart rate. It helps prevent stress related illnesses, probably one of them being loneliness, lowers levels of stress hormones, making legal professionals more resilient to high pressure situations. Encourages movement, as interacting
Mhm.
with animals also involves walking and playing. It
Right,
really does, it gives you 10 seconds to just switch off for a second
right,
and really just connect to how beautiful and unconditionally loving they are. And, they're giving to us what we hopefully are giving to everyone else that we're trying to help and protect.
That
So
is that is so true. And of course it increases, like even what you said with the plant, like giving some love to the plant, that kind of tenderness.
yes,
The tenderness isn't just great for its own sake. It increases your oxytocin levels. What that does is, when you have oxytocin levels, which is, kind of like the bonding hormone, the love hormone, when you have higher oxytocin levels because you just like had a good cuddle session with your dog, believe it or not, it actually translates into more amicable relationships with coworkers
right,
because
more
you're kind of
compassion.
in that like more connected, more patient mode when it comes to other people. So, benefits all around. And I've spent a chunk of time riding horses and being around them. And,
Mhm.
like you can't be stressed when you're around them for sure, because they sense it. Like especially if you're trying to ride a horse and you're very stressed, the horse gonna be like, I don't want you riding me.
Mhm.
So it's really amazing how like there's also this like give and take with animals when it comes
Yeah,
to nature.
yes.
That's more palpable. We take a lot from trees and moss and rocks too, but it's not always, that noticeable. So I know you and I have been talking
Quieter.
about the vision even, right? Like how it helps your vision to,
Yes. 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 Once again, if we're only paying attention to 2 feet in front of us, the muscles of our eyes actually get weakened. As we know, there are lots of muscles that control every which way that we look.
Hmm.
And so having to look into the distance is helpful.
Right,
Looking to the sides. We don't do a lot of that anymore.
right,
Um,
right,
every time, all the time, anytime I do exercises, I'm always making sure we're doing twists. But even just once again, just your view just opens up. There's more to look at, obviously, in
right,
nature.
right.
So
You were actually the first person
distance,
to introduce me to eye yoga.
yes, the
And
Tibetan eye yoga chart.
I've realized that after hours of screen time, which I think we all have and lawyers definitely have a lot of it, even with like virtual court now, right? You used to
Yes,
be in like a larger setting, taking in the whole room. That's not even happening. Um, I know
right.
my
So,
eyes feel strained and tired, but even just a short walk outside helps because, all of the uh, like movements of the eye muscles that you need from like far to near and up and down and
right.
peripheral
Watching a
vision.
sunset. Right, right.
Absolutely.
And we actually do know that that's beneficial to the eyes, some exposure to sunlight. It also helps with jet lag. If you're somebody who really does end up
That's
traveling a
true.
lot, you
Yeah.
also get jet lag. Being exposed to morning sunlight is helpful um, it's helpful for jet lag.
Right.
But
So, all of this is amazing, but I know that like the biggest issue that lawyers bring up is like who has the time for this, right? So, like lawyers, of course, aren't the only group that deals with these barriers, but sometimes these barriers of no time, location constraints, and a culture, and a professional culture that prioritize work over well-being is pretty much the norm for most lawyers. And we know that a mindset shift is on the way, and that's key. And fortunately, we are now, we have a well-being in the law week, right? We're acknowledging that this is a cultural mindset that needs to shift. So I'm hoping that today we're bringing up some ideas that help our listeners view time in nature as an
right.
investment in performance and health. So I'm wondering if you have any ideas about small, actionable steps that lawyers could take today to build a more nature-connected lifestyle.
Yes. Okay. So, some practical ways that we can include more wellness in our lives. Take a 5-minute green break to step outside, sit by a window with plants, could serve as a tool to refocus and calm down the nervous system. Aim to walk in tree lined areas, spend time in gardens, or hike in the woods to reap immune boosting benefits. Even touching the soil, like gardening, or walking barefoot on grass can contribute to better health. Having a small pocket
I
rock,
have one
or
here.
some natural, some other, whether it be smooth or rough, just something that you can actually even keep in your pocket if you're feeling a little bit nervous. That's going to give you a moment to think about something else. So holding the object and focusing on the texture, the weight, the temperature helps bring attention back to the present. Breathing in the calmness, exhaling tension while using an engraved word. Some stones you can find have calm on them, or breathe, or loving thoughts, or compassion. They will enhance the effects. Nature-based desk items, such as a little mini Zen garden. I absolutely love those, where you're just sort of carving your little sand. You can carve designs into them, a potted plant, a water feature, introducing natural elements into daily workspaces, raking the pattern in the sand, observing a plant's details, or listening to the trickling sounds of water can create micro moments. Essential oils. This is huge for me. And if I've seen any of you at the the Newark Lawyers Student Center, you definitely experience a little bit of essential oils with me. I absolutely love them. So essential oils or natural fragrances provide an instant sensory reset. Scents like pine, eucalyptus, cedarwood can be inhaled deeply before and after a stressful meeting, dabbing oils onto a handkerchief, or diffusing it into your environment, or wearing a bracelet that has a diffuser on it allows the calming scent to linger throughout the day. A textured nature bracelet, beads, materials like lava stones, wood, polished rocks can serve as tactile grounding tools, rolling the beads between the fingers, syncing the breathing cycle with each bead helps promote relaxation. Lava beads can absorb essential oils. Combining the scent with touch can create a dual calming effect. Listening to nature sounds such as rain, ocean waves, bird sounds can help regulate stress relief levels. Playing nature sounds for even 5 minutes between cases while drafting legal documents provides a mental break. Earbuds can be useful to allow you to have a more of a discreet listening moment before court appearances. And I, of course, also recommend deep breathing. 3 gentle deep breaths are always helpful.
Well, as you were saying, talking about these practical ways, I was thinking that there is so much intention that goes into like creating these rituals. And we know that like approaching life with intention is definitely a stress mediation factor. Because if you're sort of like on autopilot and rushing from one thing to another, that's definitely like more survival than setting an intention and acting in that way. But if someone has the choice to actually, if it's going to take you 5 minutes to walk to work, and you have two paths to take. One seems a little bit more, shaded green. Even thinking like which one gets to be closer to plants and flowers, and just as you're
Mhm.
walking, instead of looking at your phone, just noticing, oh, here are some nice daffodils that just, came out of the ground. And I think those are all things that, in addition to their benefits for benefits of exposing us to nature when you're out and about, it also reminds me of how important it is to have intentional action as a buffer against stress. Like, here's my rock, and I have a bunch of them here. This is my like sort of like one with a rough surface, and it's something that kind of like keeps you alert and awake if you're spending a lot of time. And even things like the increased interest in like natural wood surfaces. Like, if
Mhm.
you have a desk that actually has you being able to observe like the natural,
Right, the
grains of
grain.
the tree and all that, it actually creates this added benefit of like awe. And awe is one of those feeling states that really cuts in through anxiety, right?
Right.
When we're sort of like surprised by what we find in the nature. Like you're
Nature
walking,
wants to help you. Right. Nature is
right?
on your
Right?
side. Yes.
It's
Yes.
like things that you come upon. So those are things that I thought of. Yeah.
So at the systemic level, how can law firms or bar associations support nature-based well-being initiatives?
That is a good question, and one that I actually gave some thought into and looked at some research. I actually came upon a couple of research studies that sort of compared all of the what they call nature-based interventions um, in all kinds of different settings, right? Work settings or hospital settings for patients.
Mhm.
And I just, if I recall correctly, it was like a list almost like of like 30 different items of, what are some of the ways that you can do, including like things like indoor plants, roof gardens, it- having like big having these sort of glass ceilings where you
Mhm.
can actually have like a greenhouse, plants growing in the atrium of a workplace or so on. And I'm mentioning that because there's obviously again that sort of understanding the importance of incorporating this, and
Mhm.
that's I'm sure that there are architects who are really dedicated to bringing in more natural
Yeah,
elements and natural itself inside the buildings we operate in.
right.
But in terms of like law firms, thinking about how do we make our law firm one that encourages nature exposure. It builds that in. Creating outdoor spaces definitely is one. Encouraging walking meetings if that's one that you have access to. I actually have a few judges that I have worked with where they're taking walking lunch breaks with colleagues. So that's like the best part because they're exposed to some nature and they're sort of outside connecting with colleagues, moving around a little bit, and they definitely have a better mood when they go back into their
It
chambers,
does
right?
release endorphins. Yes, just that
Exactly.
little bit. And right, when
Right.
you're in a better mood, everything
And
goes better.
And in terms of just having simple green space exposure, being able to, if you're having like a retreat of sorts, if you're having like a team building activity, trying to do things outdoors a little, instead of, maybe having the company holiday events at an enclosed space, maybe looking for a place where there's, I don't know, even like a trip to the aquarium might be something that,
Or a
brings
picnic.
like nature in. And
Right.
I don't know, I think it was like kind of an 80s, 90s thing to have a lot of like fish tanks and like organizational spaces, but there was something to it. I mean, you were exposed to animals, nature, and water. So even those kind of things, and
Having plants at the entrance as you walk in.
absolutely.
I've actually noticed it's funny if you go to even food shopping, if you go to a supermarket where all of the greenery as you walk in, the flowers, the plants, fruits and vegetables, as you walk in, those are the things you see first. I think
Mhm.
it offers you a better experience. And so
Absolutely.
probably having just potted plants at the front entrances,
Right.
or maybe everyone having a simple plant on their desk,
Right.
um, it's going to clean the air and you already connect with green space. And it offers you a way to do a very gentle meditation where, as you were talking about, you can look at the patterns in the leaves. Um,
Mhm.
but once again, we know that just any exposure is going to help lower blood
Right.
pressure.
And interestingly enough, I also found that spending time in green spaces, even indoor green spaces, have been shown to be correlated with fewer sick days and better overall health. Like people feeling like they are in better health, the more their green space exposure is. So, that's pretty much like I think hopefully leaves our listeners with a lot of ideas in terms of okay, how can I get to the 120 minutes of nature exposure indoors and out? If if you have a laptop and if you can actually move that in front of a window where even if you're not like intentionally looking out, and daydreaming, looking at the trees, even if you're sitting there, you are taking it in as you're typing away,
Mhm.
drafting,
Right. Getting
moving
that
to
sunshine.
draft. It's coming into you. So just making room for that. I know that you and I felt very good about this topic for physical well-being because nature is free, accessible, and lots of scientific backing to the physical well-being. So here's our challenge to you, and then we have a very brief little clip of a wonderful movie that Josie wanted to recommend. Maybe you talk about the movie a little bit, and then I'll sort of transition us into that.
Okay, so the movie is actually called Shinrin Yoku, which is the Japanese word for forest bathing. And it's actually been shown in something like 82, 92 international film festivals, and it's
Mhm.
won about 19 awards. And it is kind of wild. It actually just takes you into a forest, and you hear the birds, you hear the water, and it just puts you in a state, to be honest, where I want to be in that space. And it's going to help to already reduce your stress level. Um, I would say just on a certain level, maybe, take a few minutes. We're going to see what, about 6 minutes, right? And then
Right.
look for it.
Um,
Um, uh, Prime actually, Amazon Prime actually has it for sale if you want the full hour. But we are going to share 6 minutes of it, and you can look
or
at,
thereabouts. But in doing this, just want to
rub some
highlight
essential
that.
oils, have a rock with you, um, have sort of a beautiful flower feature. Maybe you want to, if you actually sit near a window while you're watching it, really immerse yourself in it. If you
Right.
can't get outside, but it will inspire you. You will, after you watch this, you will want to spend more time in nature, boosting your immunity.
And we do want to urge you to think about a challenge that to yourself, a well-being intervention, to spend at least 5 to 10 minutes a day in nature. And I invite you to track how it affects your stress, your focus, your energy levels. And we hope that this talk gets you to thinking and that you would consider some of our recommendations into action. We designed it in a way to hopefully leave everyone with this idea that there's at least something I can do of all of the things that was brought up. And if one week isn't making it to the 120 minutes, there's definitely the more you can do, the better it is. And with that, I will leave you with I'll start sharing my screen
Shinrin
with
Yoku.
this wonderful movie, a clip from it. I hope that you enjoyed this little clip, and we even had a little guest, Josie's dog.
That's Bodhi.
Again, lots of intentional additions to your day, small increments, and it's all around you. I hope that this has served you some ideas and got you motivated. We have four other talks. We have talks this week on different facets of well-being every day at 10 o'clock, and I hope that you tune into the others. And as always, NJLAP is here for all lawyers, judges, and law students and law graduates in New Jersey. So give us a call if we can support you in different ways. Thank you, Josie, for sharing these great tips with us.
Thank you, Daphne. It was my pleasure. I look forward to seeing you again soon.